me go to immigration. You made a decision to delay any executive action until after the election. What do you tell the person that's going to get deported before the election that this decision was essentially made in your hopes of saving a Democratic Senate?
Well, that's not the reason. A couple of things that I want to say about immigration. Number one, I have been consistent about why this is important. The country is going to be better off if we have an immigration system that works, that has strong border security, that has streamlined our legal immigration system so the best and the brightest who want to stay here and invest here and create jobs here can do so, that families can be unified, and that a system where the millions of people who are here in many cases for a decade or more, who have American kids, who are our neighbors, who oftentimes are our friends, that they have a path to get legal by paying taxes and getting above board, paying a fine, learning English if they have to. So the good news is we have bipartisan support for that. We have a Senate bill that would accomplish that. The House Republicans refused to do it, and what I said to them was, if you do not act on something that's so common sense that you got labor, business, evangelicals, law enforcement, you got folks across the board supporting it, then I'm going to look for all the legal authorities I have to act. I want to make sure we get it right. I want to make sure, number one, that all the T's are
crossed. Looks like politics. I mean, it looks like election year politics.
Not only do I want to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, but here's the other thing, Chuck, and I'm being honest now, about the politics of it. This problem with unaccompanied children that we saw a couple of weeks ago, where you had from Central America a surge of kids who were showing up at the border, it got a lot of attention. And a lot of Americans started thinking, we've got this immigration crisis on our hands. And what I want to do is, when I take executive action, I want to make sure that it's sustainable. I want to make sure
the public's not behind you. You're not taking it. It sounds a little bit like that. You're concerned the public wouldn't support what you did.
What I'm saying is that I'm going to act because it's the right thing for the country, but it's going to be more sustainable and more effective if the public understands what the facts are on immigration, what we've done on unaccompanied children, and why it's necessary.
Ebola. There's some anxiety in the country about it. Obviously, it's something that Africa's trying to get its hands around, but there's obviously anxiety in the United States. How concerned are you, and how concerned should Americans be?
Well, Americans shouldn't be concerned about the prospects of contagion here in the United States short term, because this is not an airborne disease.
I noticed you said short term, though.
Well, I'm going to get to that. It's not an airborne disease like the flu. You can only catch it through the transmission of bodily fluids. The problem that we've got is in, right now, a limited portion of Western Africa. So what I've said, and I said this 2 months ago to our national security team, is we have to make this a national security priority.
It's going to be a U.S.-led effort.
As usual. And we're going to have to get U.S. military assets just to set up, for example, isolation units and equipment there to provide security for public health workers surging from around the world. If we do that, then it's still going to be months before this problem is controllable in Africa, but it shouldn't reach our shores. Now, here's the last point I'm going to make. If we don't make that effort now, and this spreads not just through Africa, but other parts of the world, there's the prospect then that the virus mutates, it becomes more easily transmittable, and then it could be a serious danger to the United States.
What's the rationale for this election? I'm going to be a little cynical here. $3 billion, I would argue, is being decided to see if it's Harry Reid or Mitch McConnell that's in charge of gridlock in the Senate. I mean, we're talking either, what's the difference between a 2-seat Democratic majority and a 2-seat Republican majority as far as your agenda is concerned?
First of all, there's a sharp difference between the Democratic agenda and the Republican agenda. And the American people need to know that. If you've got a Democratic Senate, that means bills are being introduced to raise the minimum wage. That's something Democrats support. We think America needs a raise.
Where's that on your desk?
I'll get to that. Equal pay for equal work. We care about that. The Republicans, that's not their priority. We think it's important to make sure that issues like family leave and family-friendly policies and more effective child care are in place so that folks are getting help, that young people are getting more assistance when it comes to paying for college educations, rebuilding our infrastructure, putting folks back to work on our roads, our bridges, all of which would boost our economy now and boost it into the future. On all those issues, there is a sharp contrast. Now, it is true that if the House stays Republican, that it's unlikely that I get a lot of these bills to my desk. But it makes a big difference if we've got at least one branch in Congress that is presenting these ideas, making arguments. I know that, given the gridlock that we've seen over the last couple of years, it's easy to say that these midterms don't matter, but the fact of the matter is that on every issue that's important to middle-class Americans, overwhelmingly we're seeing a majority prefer the Democratic option, and us having a Democratic Senate that can present those issues and put them forward, just like they did on immigration, even if the House Republicans fail to act, means that we're debating the right stuff for the country. We're debating the things that are going to help us grow.
This wouldn't be Meet the Press if I didn't have a chart with me. Your year of action on the State of the Union.
Yeah.
And it's a little small here. It'll be bigger for the television viewers.
You're going to make it a bigger.
I will. Yeah, there you go. A lot not accomplished here. The one thing about, in your State of the Union, supporting Syrian rebels is there. But immigration, overhauling the tax system, raising the minimum wage. You brought up the issues yourself.
Exactly.
That was with a Democratic Senate. So that's why you look at this and you sit there and say, how does things change? And do you think your presidency's in bigger trouble then if you have a Republican Senate?
I think elections matter. I think votes matter. And given the fact that the punditry overwhelmingly felt that this was going to be...
You're overly pointing at me.
that this was going to be a good year for Senate Republicans because the seats that were up were in states that were tilting or significantly with significant Republican majorities. If Democrats hold the Senate, I think that should get Republicans to once again...
I think that sends a national message.
I think what it does is to send a message to Republicans that people want to get stuff done. That their strategy of just obstructing and saying no to every piece of legislation that might help middle-class families, that might create ladders of opportunity for people, that is an agenda that the American people reject. And that then gives us room, hopefully, to find some compromises. Look, I've said this before, Chuck. If you ask me back in August what I want for my birthday, I'd say, give me a loyal opposition that has some common sense and is willing to work on some basic issues that didn't used to be partisan issues.